Yeah.
Oh, the white with the race bike with the road bike.
Yeah, the road bike. It's the Cannondale. It's the Cannondale.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, dude. It's all good. I've been taking the mountain bike out. Check this out, dude. I've gotten really good. I can do the mountain bike no hands now.
Oh shit.
So I've been playing around with that.
Hell yeah, dude.
The new sheriff in town, huh?
Oh shit.
Huh?
So there's a new sheriff in town, huh?
Dude, I'm just trying to get my steez up. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm already on the bike.
He's going down the mountain, the jumps and shit, no hands.
Dude, I watch these videos, these guys doing cool stuff. Like I hit the trails yesterday with Ace, and I was like, can I be cool too? And I'm like, oh god.
It's gonna come at a price.
I know. I've already crashed my bike like twice now, you know?
What if Ace could ride a bike, dude?
He don't need to, bro. He's on the ground. He's literally like my familiar. He's like, where are we going? So, it's so sick, dude. It's the best. Like getting to do that with him is the best.
It's the best.
But I finally feel better. Fuck, I was sick though.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready?
All right, yeah.
I know we're tight on
I
time.
started coming back from Japan. I got sick that last day. I woke up with like sinus in the front, like right here.
Yep.
Full.
Me too.
Full. And so I was like, man, something's up with my allergy. So I jump in the shower that night, wake up the next day even worse. And then like the flight back, we like went and found this pharmacy in Japan and bought these little pills. They're like, take three times a day. I was like, okay. So I take them shits. We get to the airport and I'm like, I feel heavy, dude. I'm like, oh shit, like I'm getting knocked. We hit the plane and I immediately fall asleep for like 7 hours. So
Sick.
The flight, yeah, it's so sick. And then the flight's like 9. So we left there at like 6 local time there, which is midnight here, right? So we left and I slept until 7. And then took another hour nap to 8. And then I just stayed up the rest of the day. Like I forced myself to drink coffee and stuff like that. And fucking from there, I basically kind of was on schedule because I woke up local time, went to bed normal time, like kind of hit my thing. It felt weird.
That's best case scenario though.
Right. And but that since then I've been like I'm still kind of stepped up here. I got like a cough. Like but I just took NyQuil and blew it out.
We got a letter sent like from like the school being like there's like a case of walking pneumonia like going across like straight up the country, you know?
Yeah.
So could have been what you got. Fucking David, you're tight on time, huh? So Jay, I want to
like what time is it?
Can we go ahead and crush the book stuff because I want to talk to Jay about Japan and shit, but I want to take my time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same. I'm down to hop in.
All right. Let's
and then whatever time you have, you can keep hanging out. Like I just want to catch up a little bit, but I would want to catch up more too. So if you have more time, I'll stick around.
Just want to say thank you guys. You know, that was my bad, and yeah, I'm gonna definitely clear out Sundays from like DJing, or at least just know beforehand because that was fucking a dumb mistake. But yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Meeting early.
Yeah, man, it's all good.
Did she have? Were you guys visiting family out there, or is this just a funsies thing?
What?
Japan.
The Japan thing.
Save it for after, brother.
Okay.
I was like, yo, give me something.
Okay.
Enrichment.
So we'll start. We're recording already.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll start our recording. 3, 2, 1. Here. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. We're so grateful that you're here to tune in. We read a new book, and this is an upload on that video. It's called Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. It's a brief history of humankind. And what it is kind of stepping through the development of Homo sapiens to where we are today. And he starts with hunter-gatherers. He gets into the agricultural revolution, talks about modern times and conquest, capitalism, a whole bunch of different things. And this week, we're going to be talking about chapters 15 through 20. We finished this over the past couple of weeks, and we wanted to give you our honest review of the book and kind of what we thought overall. So just to start with what we read recently, the chapter titled The Marriage of Science and Empire. I wrote that this might have been the best chapter of the book so far.
Yeah,
I thought
15 and 16.
Yeah, 15 was pretty good. 16 was good. And I learned a lot from this chapter about the rise and spread of knowledge, the innate curiosity of humans throughout history, and the role it played in the spread of countries and people. Human beings are truly amazing. Calling these explorations. So in this chapter, he talks about Spain and Columbus and various people exploring the world with scientists and military. And a big reason why empires spread and knowledge developed is because scientists were involved in these exploration missions. So like Britain commissioned some South Pacific expedition. And on that trip, they had naval officers, they had like a navy, and then they had scientists on there like botanists, geologists, various people, geographers, like things like that, where they could expand knowledge in human kind of culture. Yeah. And one of the big changes that happened from the Britain expansion prior was, invasions and expeditions before, like Rome, they spread and they instilled their values on people.
Yeah.
And the big difference was now people were doing these expeditions with a curiosity, like, we don't know what we don't know. Let's go learn it.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was really cool. He talked about Britain exploring different countries like Australia, Tasmania. Go ahead, John.
Something that, okay, one, I was kind of lost. I didn't know, like, I was like, why are we starting here? Are we like going over the whole book? Like, if this is the episode, I thought this was a weird place to start, but whatever. I'm up this, I'm up to speed now. Typically, we're like, why did you pick the book? Blah blah blah. But anyway, yeah, out of the whole book, which we could get to it in a little bit, this was probably like the most interesting chapter out of the whole book for me too. One thing that I thought was really cool was like, as a culture, like, why was not just Britain was like maybe like the poster child of who he's talking about, but why was this like European, like Anglo man, why were they like why are they able to like progress like the bar of like science and technology so fast compared to everyone else? And like there was like tons of great nations before them, like for example, like use Rome as an example. Like during Roman times, they had already discovered steam power. They had made these little steam toys. So like the technology of steam engine was like, could have been capable for them. But for whatever reason, they didn't have like the same like social values and like capitalistic values as like these like Europeans did, where like they weren't investing in new because like they were already Rome. So they're like, we already have everything. Like we're the shit. And like we already conquered everything. So there's nothing new out there. No need to. We already figured the whole thing out. We're like in this area, they had found out that like a couple times in like the early in their history, they would take a gamble or bet on like the new, whether it was like new land, new technology, new tactics for war. And when it would pay off, it would be like tenfold the reward. They're like, yo, so sick. And then the steam engine made a shit ton of money. Like what he explained, like anyway. So I think it was funny that like within like the British figured out how to make a steam engine so they can pump water out of mine shafts, to them making like the first like mine cart to take coal out of the mines. They're like, we should build trains. Like we should build them everywhere. Like
right.
that was all in like fucking like 2 years, like hypothetically speaking,
right.
You could but like no one there's people before them that could have done that, but they just weren't like, as a society, they weren't thinking about like the new. And everywhere England went, like we're the offspring of them being like here's all this new technology we found out. Fucking take it. Right. Same thing we saw with like Australia, New Zealand, like India. Just like him talking about how they like owned the port of Hong Kong for 100 years. I was like, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. Right. Like we forget about shit. Like
recently,
that,
like 1997.
1997. So like we forget about that. Like, but in the blink of an eye, England literally not. And this is the thing, dude. England went from the small fucking nation country to like owning half the fucking world, and then back to the island all in like fucking 100 years. Like, right. Pretty crazy. So this was like the most interesting chapter for me too, thinking about it. Yeah.
Like even in here, there was like periods of like him talking about geology and Charles Darwin, things like that.
Yeah.
And like immediately it perked my ears because I'm a geologist, but like he talked about it from many different perspectives, and I thought that was really cool. Like, you talk about what you hear in culture today is like, oh well, what they did is they came and oppressed, and they came and did all these bad things. But he talks in here like many things throughout this book. He mentions that like calling, let's say, an empire good or evil isn't, you can't say it's one or the other.
Yeah, and that's a fucking weird way to think about it. Like in in retrospect, you can be like, out of all the other fucking empires or nations, England did it the most respectfully. Like they literally became super powerful. Everywhere they went, they brought new technology, running water, and democracy, fucking not democracy, like the judicial system, like state law, shit like that. And then they're like, you know what, dude, we're thinking, and I mean, there's pushback obviously, but they're like, you know what, dude, we're gonna go back to just being England. Like we're gonna let go of the thing. Like that's pretty crazy if you think. Like normally there's like wars, like tons of wars for that.
Right.
So,
yeah, and he talks about that, how they really kind of a lot of places they like retreated nicely and
pretty respectful. Like them and India still have like a good relationship, like up until like recently, and still a good relationship. You know,
this part of the book reminded me of when we read Endurance. You know, like the expedition mindset. Like you're going out into this like journey, and you had to raise sponsorships and earn contracts, and then take like a whole squad of people that were just like really knowledgeable, intelligent men, and then just hard workers. What was the dude's name on the
Shackleton?
Shackleton?
But the guy with the he was like
the scope and stuff.
Yeah.
I forget his name.
Yeah, that guy.
That's the hero of the story.
Yeah, pretty much.
I forgot his name.
So that
wasn't like Wesley or something. I swear something like that.
Something. He pulled out the sextant and was like in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. Like, let me do some trigonometry.
Like in the water. Yeah,
that shit crazy. That shit really is crazy, dude. Some trigonometry with a piece of string and shit.
It does though, because in that story they had a geologist, they had a doctor, they had a botanist, they had like a biologist, they had all this. It is literally
I had to earn that contract to even do that. Like for a while, he was searching for someone to sponsor him, right?
Well, they're trying to make it like worth their while. They're like, whatever's new out there, if we can harvest it, we need the right people to harvest all like the new things, you know?
Right. And so that's what he's talking about in this whole chapter, is like the marriage of science and kind of colonization and imperialism, and how they kind of went hand in hand to develop, Great Britain or the Dutch example, which was really cool.
The mercenary, like the mercenary army, like the mercenary like country, pretty much,
right.
And like today, like there's nothing like new under the sun, and like Google and Apple are like that. They're like, they make enough money that's like close to some like the largest country levels, so
beyond.
So like, if they wanted to, like if they could play by the same rules, like what if Google had their own mercenary army? Like imagine that they're like, Taiwan's ours. We need the chips.
Yeah, they really could though. Facebook.
They really could though. Like that's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. And then like they fucking like weigh in on like the laws and elections. It's bad.
Yeah, dude. It was a really interesting.
Okay, real quick, are we just gonna go through like 15 through 20, like just where we left off, and then we'll hit the whole book thing?
Yeah, I was thinking we do 15 through 20, and then we go over our overall kind of thoughts on the entire book, because like we could talk about like his hunter gatherer and things like that, but I feel like we could touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So moving on to 16.
Yeah, I actually had a question about it, because it talks about the mindset change from we know everything, Rome, we're going to take over, and it's still our kind of ideals and beliefs and way of life on people that we conquer. The change to we don't know, we're out there to learn. He never really mentioned what led to that mindset change of conquering.
Easy. And the reason why he never mentioned it is because he would give credit to something I think like this guy doesn't like personally, but it's the Christian mindset. All those people that he's talking about are like from Christian countries. The Christian mindset's like, I don't know everything. That's like number one rule.
Right, that we're like infallible. You think it stems from Christian thought pattern,
and like we don't know everything. Only God knows everything, and we don't know what God thinks. Like or it's like what he teaches. Like the person in front of you might be able to teach you something. So I think those are like Christian values. So I think it has something to do with it. And a lot of these scientists and stuff, they're like believers in Christ, I think, that'd be a bet.
It's an interesting idea, because when I remember saying, hey, I'm going to be a geologist, and then, hey, I became a geologist, people were like, well, how does that conflict with your Christian beliefs that you have? Like science and Christianity were mutually exclusive. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily think it really does impede on any beliefs that I have, because like in the beginning, God created the world in 7 days, right? What is a day to God? Like I can look back over history and see billions of years of development in just a rock record. But for me,
go
ahead.
I saw this quote from the scientist, and he's like, only amateurs say that like science and religion are like separated. He goes like, a real pro in science, he's like, it gives more power to like how amazing God is to make this shit happen. You know, he's like, the more I study my science, he's like, the more I'm like, wow, dude. He's like, only a master creator could like actually make this shit happen.
Was it John Lennox or something?
I don't know. Google it, JMO. Google that shit. But,
JMO, what up?
Yeah.
No, I think it's the same guy. He talks about like, I mean, he believes in God and he's a Christian, but those things are not, exclusively.
Look up. Only amateur scientists don't believe in God. Like, and the quote will pop up. I remember he used the word amateur, and I was like,
yeah,
people who love their credentials hate being called amateurs.
Albert Einstein said, the more I study science, the more I believe in God.
That's not the quote, but another banger. Shout out Al. That's real. E equals MC square. And he was like,
Lord William said, if you study science deep enough and long enough, it will force you to believe in God.
Another banger. So I think we're hitting
John Lennox.
John Lennox.
If it was JMO, dude, he would have had that up.
I'll give you all his quotes.
Oh, yeah. All right, maybe you don't gotta do all that.
All right.
All right. It's cool.
Capital agreed.
All right, number 16. So in this chapter, we're talking about capitalism. And
what page is that? I can't tell if I'm on 15 or 16.
305.
Okay, never mind. I got it. Okay.
Let's see. So it talks about kind of
this shit's so lame. He's like fucking first talking about fucking like thing. I was like, dude, I fucking get how this shit works. I don't even fucking need to like show me a fake story about it. Like Mr. Greedy and Mr. Muffin, blah blah blah. I was like, dude, shut the fuck
up. So in this one, he talks about, I think one of the biggest things in this chapter was the mindset change when capitalism became the norm and kind of the most practiced economic mindset. Was this change from a belief that resources in the world are finite. When Rome got all of its land conquered, it thought, okay, hey, our resources are finite, right? So he attributes to the Christian belief that, or to a Christian belief that there was maximized resources, and the more that you got, the less that somebody else got. And so there was like this balancing effect in the universe, or that, in order for you to succeed, somebody else has to fail.
You're saying that's the Christian way?
This is what he attributed to.
Where he say that? I don't remember that. I don't think that's true.
He talks about Catholics in Spain.
Because I win, someone else doesn't have to lose. Well, maybe in a competition, yes, but like being good isn't a competition.
Let me see here.
I think he's talking about the timeline of I forget where it's at, but it's like the timeline of that cultural shift. I think what you're leading into is like he kind of sets that as like what it used to be, and then moves into that resource becomes infinite because of I don't know, maybe I'm changing your words a little bit, but it becomes infinite based on like the credit system in the capitalist society that's created with knowing that is infinite.
Yeah, I mean, I get what he's talking about here, It
has to be like right in the beginning of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT, that shit, dude.
Sorry, I just.
No, I think we could find it.
Dude, the first whole half is talking about Mr. McMuffin or something. It's so fucking stupid.
It might be like 3:10, 3:11.
We can just move past it.
All right. Anyway, the idea changed from there's limited resources that we can actually take or develop into as human beings. It changed to now we have a belief in the future and we can continue to develop. And so we developed like a credit system, right? And I'm wondering kind of, the change where that happened from, hey, we have limited resources to there's an unlimited amount of resources. And because I succeed doesn't mean that somebody else has to be, taking a hit because of that, a negative. I just thought that it was an interesting change in history when credit was invented.
Okay, can I unpack it real quick? I think I know what you're talking about. He's talking about, and it wasn't Christians. He's talking about like if they open up like a new bakery and there's like the Royal Bakery, it would take away the profits of like the already established bakery. So he wouldn't want a new bakery. You'd have to have like a new thing. And in this thing, it's like, well, no, I'm gonna make a bakery that serves like things wrapped in bacon. Like that's my niche, So like that's what I think that's kind of what you guys were talking about. Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to earlier in the book when he talks about like how the first time when he gives an example of how like the Dutch were really good about paying back their loans, and like the Spanish king kept like taking their money, not giving it back, and then like pretty much blackmailing them for more, pressuring them into more. So like the government lost like their social trust, and these like businessmen with like large amounts of capital started earning high amounts of trust, and that kind of just shifted like the global paradigm of like what you could finance and what is like lending money look like. Like actually like these people over here, like they have nothing to do with politics. It's all about business. And every time I loan them money, they always pay it back, and like we get our interest, and like they seem happy. Like whatever they're doing with their freedom to do with their money, they seem happy, And then like things like the East Indian Trading Company, arrive, and like shit like that, So
yeah, the Dutch was really interesting where, Spain,
Amsterdam.
Like yeah, literally. He was saying, in Spain, you have two sons. He gives this example. He sends one to Spain to finance the monarchy there, or like the royalty there, and then he sends another kid to Amsterdam, and they are doing business. And he gives that example of where the Spaniard king wouldn't pay back his loans, and in fact, he charged him to do more. Like, hey, now you need to give me 20,000, or you're going to jail.
Like he's like a new war. He's like a new war just happened, so I need more money. So I need to pay my men. And like that was another thing. Like I've been listening to this Roman podcast a lot too. And like the big problem they had towards the late end of their like history is that like in the beginning when they're conquering new lands, they could always pay their soldiers what they said they would pay them to make them fight. But like towards the end, because they'd already conquered everything, it was always just more civil wars. So there was never new pieces of the pie. So like for the soldiers to get reimbursed, they would have to take money from somewhere, like AKA the citizens, So like it was always a lose-lose. But so that could be what he's pulling on too, like that type of thing. Like when you get so big as an empire, you're like the pie doesn't grow, but they're talking about like actually you can like micro market stuff. That's like why Amazon's so like hyper successful too. It's like whatever you want, you Google it, like it's just right there for you, like bunch of micro markets.
Their credit score with the community is good. Like I ordered this new piece of furniture that was supposed to be here on November 8th. It got here Thursday, like November 1st. You know what I'm saying? Like they've built a good credit with their consumer base. And so it's same thing with like the Dutch back then. They were like always on time. They made sure to pay exactly what they were told, and what they agreed on. So they built a credit with like a market, like a venture capitalist or like some sort of investor. They built credit that they were like, all right, well, let's do it here,
Yeah, for sure. And then
so it's kind of the birth of the stock market and capitalism as a whole.
Totally, because they started taking their companies public, being like, hey, do you want to get in on this? Like, we might make a bunch of money. Like we're gonna sell, like they said, like clogs or whatever,
And then Britain was like, hey, you want to get on this? We're selling opium to the Chinese. And started a whole war, and China just didn't stand a chance at all. Reading about that was interesting.
Dude, that's just crazy. And that marks, I think China calls it 100 years of shame or some shit like that. Like before then, China was straight up like they thought like hey, we know there's other people out there, but like they're all fucking like like
We're the best.
beasts. They're like, hey, go. They're like beasts.
We're barbarians.
They're barbarians. There we go. And like he's like, we fuck everything. And then like England went to war to be like, listen, it's our right to sell you guys drugs. And sometimes I think about this. Okay, we don't think about this, but China has a long history, a long view of history. Sometimes I think what they're doing with the fentanyl, they learned it from what England did to them 100 years ago. Because like they're just feeding us fucking poison, like killing us from within. Like he said, like what was the number? 1 out of what 10 guys were like died of opium. Hey, go.
Yeah, 10% of the population was addicted to opium.
It's fucking crazy. It's fucking like that's like our fentanyl crisis. Like they learned that from England 100 years ago, and it was so legit. England went to war, took their biggest port, and was like, "Listen, we're gonna keep selling drugs here, and if you even think about not letting us, we'll take more." Like crazy.
Keep up, dude. That's insane.
It's crazy. It's crazy. They made a 100-year contract
like that nowadays.
It would be more difficult, but I feel like China could take Taiwan and be like, listen, what are you guys gonna do about it? You know? Like are we like do we want to go to war with China? You know, like I don't know I wouldn't want to go to war with China. Fucking they can have Taiwan.
It's an impressive thought. I never thought about it like that, but they got the tactics. You know what I mean?
I mean, they have a lot all of our tactics we learned from the Romans. Like for real. Like every culture has they set a really good principle of like current day culture, and we keep mimicking, and things aren't forgotten. And the people who know history, like China knows history. They're one of the countries and cultures that have been around in their mind since the beginning, like the Jews, you know,
right.
And they don't forget that shit. Like they just got Hong Kong back. You think they forgot that shit? Like they fucking remember that shit, you know?
It's 10 more years until it's not in its own entity. It's now part of China.
Yeah, isn't that that shit's crazy if you think about it. Right. Like that's so alien to us now. Like Russia with the Ukraine thing, they're like bad guys, fucking just 1997 a lease ended of England owning Hong Kong, part of China. We need to have a bigger picture, what's going on in the world. Yeah. Hey, you go away. I can't do this shit right now.
Hold on, I got something. This is from a Hong Kong protest.
China.
Yeah. What's your message to? Have you seen Donald Trump? Do you think he should step in?
Donald Trump don't trust China. China is asshole.
This is what you wanted. This is what you wanted to show us.
Oh shit!
The Asians are some of Trump's biggest supporters, dude. They know. They know what communism looks like, and they're for America, dude. That's why they're here.
You know, when I was in Japan, I was like, wow, this place is really, really westernized. It felt like, you were in just a major city. I don't know what New York's like, but it has to feel like that.
Of course.
And it's the same thing. It's consume. It's ads everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've never really lived in a big city. Even when I was staying in Long Beach a little bit, I was still out in the, you know what I mean? I wasn't in the heart of the city. So everywhere there's the heart of the city, it's ads everywhere. I was like, whoa, this is so different, But capitalism got there too. And it's I was really surprised at how Western things were there, So I mean, you see the touch everywhere. It's in terms of places maybe that I visited, you see the touch of capitalism and how that had made its impact on that side of the world. It was really cool to see. It was pretty much similar,
Yeah, just a bigger city.
I was like, this.
I mean,
insane.
yeah, where the West is like Japan's biggest consumer of so much of their media,
Right.
I mean, that's what free trade and capitalism does is they connect us with who would have thought that Americans would like this fucking cartoon fucking media, but we do, and because we have access to it, they're able to make more of it and make more money, and they might not have been able to make these shows unless there was people here in America wanting to watch them, if it was limited to just Japan, so in the best way, that's how it works.
or even cars too. Toyota, Honda is like the most popular car out here.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
like if you said today,
Safety.
like right now, if you asked a random person, like, what do you think is like the most known car company in the world, they would say Toyota. You know,
I would
um,
so yeah.
like maybe like in the past it might have been Ford. You know,
Right.
but they've lost a lot of the credibility. Where like Toyota stands up, like dude, everyone rocks with Toyota hard. You know,
Hell yeah, dude. Right. So that was, I think this chapter was a good overview of kind of how capitalism started, what it is, and the beginning of the stock market. There was some things in there, but one of my takeaways I got was that capitalism, just like empires, is neither purely good or evil. It has led to the improvement of life for every human being it serves, but it has made some mistakes, such as slavery. A world has been created that can only be run by capitalism. This was a quote
What-
from his.
One thing I kind of want to touch on before we get past this is like, I think one of the reasons why like it's such a like America is like an entrepreneur like country and like socially like it's good to be independent and freedom is because like he shows that picture of like of Manhattan, which was like the new Amsterdam made by the Dutch, you know, and like
Right.
where like New York Times Square is like where like the base was or whatever. It's like the original colonies in America were founded by corporations that were like got money from like royal palaces. So it was kind of like these third party people that were like willing to bet on something, you know? So
Right.
and like that's the seeds that grew our country. So I think that's why the reason why we operate today is like we're seeds of that type of thinking, you know, like not
Right.
even it's weird how we got here. Like, look at that. If you look at that picture on page 323, it's like that was a military base from like a company, and that's what New York is today. Like, just very cool, you know.
Right. This was the beginning of New Orleans.
New Amsterdam, which is like New York.
Oh, Manhattan. Yeah, yeah. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do like, he mentions that you can't really call anything of these things purely good or evil. I do like that he mentions that because like we got a lot of good out of it. The quote, "A rising tide lifts all boats." It like the
Yeah.
threshold for what a quality of life is now because of these things.
Yeah,
It's so
for sure.
much
Net,
better.
for sure,
Yeah.
net positive. If there was no like empires and like England and all that shit, like I wouldn't have my fucking full suspension mountain bike. Like I wouldn't have this iPhone. Like we needed all that shit to happen. You
Yeah, and
know,
it's not even like it's a past problem, like we all have a phone, like Joe Rogan talks about all the time, that's like built on slave
slaves.
labor. So it's like
Oh, yeah.
it's built to this day. Like it's just something that comes with big developments like that, unfortunately. So we have to just be diligent in terms of seeing where that's happening in the marketplace and maybe spending our money elsewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. 17, humans' largest conundrum, the wheels of industry.
Ugh, I hated this one too.
In this chapter, he talks about humans' largest conundrum when it comes to the Industrial Revolution is increasing the efficiency of energy conversion. It was all about energy conversion. So the beginning of the steam engine and then creating the railroads, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, it's like once they figured out how to turn, to actually convert energy, is when we started to see this massive explosion. Like we start to see urbanization, we start to see steam engines involved, railroads, trains, cars. We start seeing all these things kind of develop. And he mentions solar power. And he says the sun could supply all of our energy if we can maximize the efficiency of a solar system.
For sure.
Better pumps, better batteries for storage, better panels for more input of energy. So if we could actually figure out how to use that and store it correctly, it's enough to power everything.
For sure.
So that's probably one of our biggest challenges now is like if people can develop that, then we would be completely energy and independent. That would be great. So yeah, he talks about that and kind of how we as humans start to learn how to convert energy to our use. And he actually talks about some negatives that come with that. It's like our agricultural industry or like cattle and
yeah, I felt like this part was just like a repackage of like a chapter we read earlier. I was like, oh, I've read enough about the cows and shit, bro. I know.
Right. And so he's talking about like kind of how monkeys that get taken away from their mom, they they still crave
That was
like
so sad, dog.
like a motherly touch. So they hang out with the cloth versus the metal, and they only go to the metal fake monkey for milk, and then it goes back to the cloth one. So it's like, hey, you know, we're messing up in terms of these animal psychological development, but here's the net benefit. We can have like 7 billion people and, you know, things like that. So he talked about some of the negatives that come with
The chicks on the conveyor belt.
the
bro.
chicks on it too.
Just getting
When he's
pulverized.
throwing it into the, yeah, just pulverized for real. And yeah, it's sad, but just like
For sure.
everything, you know, it's got some good elements and bad elements. It's just kind of what we live in.
All that for your damn
That's real PTSD.
McChicken, bro.
Damn, bro.
Like, what the fuck?
Chicken nuggies.
Chicken nugs, dude. Damn. Yeah, but talks about that. Let's see here.
Not the monkeys.
Okay, one of the things he says in here, and I kind of paraphrased it, is that you know, he starts talking about well, let's see, the birth of consumerism.
Yeah.
So in a capitalistic society, in order for it to continue growing, that means that more needs to be produced. With more production, capitalistic societies need more people to buy more stuff. Thus consumerism was born, and people no longer need to be frugal. Instead, they just buy the new version to replace the older version. Consumerism is a symbol of capitalism in Harari's argument. So like we're producing so much that we need people to buy stuff. You know, when I talk to people, I don't really, or like even looking around, you don't see much old stuff getting fixed. One of the things that in Japan, while we were there, I was talking to Nadine's brother, and they're like, yeah, well, anything over 1980 is basically considered worthless. So like old homes born in the 80s, they're absolute, like they don't look at them you can get them for 10K. You can get a house for 10K. Demolish it, build a new one. Everything's just about that. They don't ever they keep things restored, but once it hits past a certain age, it's kind of like, well, fuck it, time to build a new thing. And so this is kind of what, you know, he's talking about here is like back in the day, you used to see I
want to say Japan, out of all cultures, I think they do a good job at the new and keeping the old. Like, yeah, that's in the city, but like I feel like if you go to rural areas in Japan, like they still do a good job of like traditional like farming, traditional like architecture. So I think like just like any city, like New York's like that in a lot of ways, you know. So but and just like the city I'm at, like it's 100 years old. So I feel like that could just because you were like in a super urban like city area. But like I was talking about it with my dad, like Japan's one of the places that marries like the past tradition and the new, and like their past and tradition doesn't hold them back from the new. They keep a good balance actually. Like Japan hasn't, I don't think, lost their identity or lost a lot of like the original like artisanship or like craftsmanship that they did 100, 200, 500 years ago, where like a lot of the great architecture in our own country like could not be mimicked or like is not even being kept up with in our own country, you know. And like we're losing our identity, you know, and like we're unfamiliar with our own past, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Japan, obviously is very good at maintaining things like that. I think that's what you said is a good point. I just think culturally, like as a city planning, right? Like in terms of how we value things, like get rid of the old, put in the new. That consumer, like let's just replace it with something new. He's talking about this birth of consumerism, and I think that's just one example of it. You know, like if something breaks, like my chair out there,
it's all because of quality. Like, okay, I rice cooker, okay,
right.
I got a nice rice cooker, stainless steel. It's fucking super sick. I love it. Okay, if it's a good rice cooker, I'll never have to buy a new one ever again in my life. I'm a one-time customer. But if they build rice cookers that break in 2.5 to 5 years, like they'll be out of business if they make a widget that people like and they never need again. Like that was one of the problems we had like in like early American consumerism, like around the 1920s. Like they would make washing machines that would never break. You know, they would make refrigerators that would never break. Light bulb, like Benjamin Franklin, he actually like made a different patent for light bulbs because he was like, wait, dude, my original patent is too good. Like they'll never break. I need light bulbs that break because like people will only buy one light bulb. So I think that's like a mechanism that has been added by capitalists. So we're just making products that are less quality. So I guess that's consumerism, you know, but it's less.
Walk into an IKEA every 2 to 5 years.
But you could spend more money for a higher quality thing. You know, like you
Right.
bought a piece of furniture from Amazon that's probably like, I don't know, whatever. But like if you'd spend like bigger money for like a solid piece of furniture, it would last your lifetime.
Right. Yeah. So that's where we start to see kind of that birth of that. I think that's a good marker for that is the quality of things. We need people to come back and buy another one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you start to see that reflected in the marketplace as well. So one of the things he says, I think it's towards the end of the chapter. So let me flip over to that. Okay. So he says the supreme commandment of the rich is invest. The supreme commandment of the rest of us is buy. That's on page 49. And you know, I feel like he's kind of making this argument. Like in the past, people were like, "Hey, we have to kind of take care of our stuff and you know, fix the things that are on it." He kind of is like pushing us back towards, hey, you know, maybe we should revert back to the old ways of being frugal in some ways while investing rather than being a mindless consumer. And I can agree with that in most cases. Like I have clothes that I've for a long time. If it rips on the inside, just freaking sew it up or whatever, you know?
Fix it.
Yeah, just fix it real quick. Like cars, like especially for me, the cars, if it just something happened on the car, just fix it. There's no need to go. Like I just got into an accident and it got totaled. If I could have fixed it, I would have fixed it. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just fixing it. It's an interesting way. And I mean, I feel like a lot of people are realizing that and doing that. But as a society, like consumerism is big here too. So just one interesting other thing from the chapter there. Anything else you guys have to mention?
Nope.
Mhm.
All right. 18. So, and they lived happily ever after.
Wait, 18?
18 is a permanent resolution.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah. 18 is permanent revolution. Sorry about that. 18. All right. What'd you guys get from this chapter?
I was still talking about time.
Mm-hmm. The collapse of the family and the local community.
Okay, well, one thing about time, I do like. Let's talk about that because the daylight savings time today, and I'm always very emotionally charged about daylight savings time. Like I thought we voted that we're going to get rid of it, and
Why?
they're messing with my biological clock. Like maybe unlike most people, but I spend a lot of time outside every day, no matter the weather, and I'm very familiar with like when the sun rises, when the sun sets. I can like wake up without my fucking alarm, and when they do that, like it actually does mess with me. Like it's been making me anxious all day because like I can see the sun setting. I'm like, I need to get ahead on the day, but like my clock says another thing, and it's fucking super dark in the evening now. Like they shouldn't have done that. If you just ride the wave, like you just naturally like change with it. But them changing like this, I think is like not healthy for us. Like we're imposing this on ourselves for no reason, you know? So I think
Y'all
it's
got
weird.
farmers out there, man.
Huh?
You guys have farmers out there.
Why does it fucking matter if they start at 6 or they're working till 5? Like that shit don't fucking make sense. Like keep it rolling. Why do they have to shift it back? Like there's farmers out there. They fucking have lights now. Like that was like fucking 200 years ago. Like none of this shit makes sense, dude. And like there's a bunch of data showing like it causes depression. You know, so I don't know why we're doing this. And we voted. Congress fucking voted about like we're gonna abolish the fucking time saving, and I don't know why they're not enforcing it, bro. I'm tired of this shit.
The collapse of the family.
This is what the left does, dude. They fucking they move our time and they kill Mr. Peanut. This is what they do to us.
It's an extra hour of sleep worth it.
Yeah, no, actually it was nice this morning. I woke up at like
I was like, holy shit, it's so late. I looked at the oven and I was like, fuck.
I was fucking like, oh my gosh, dude, I'm way behind the schedule. I was like,
Yeah.
fucking pissed. Anyway,
all right.
the collapse of the family, huh?
Yeah, so in this one he talks about a lot of social revolutions that were happening or have happened, and he says that all of them are dwarfed by the most momentous social revolution that ever befell mankind: the collapse of the family and local community and the replacement by the state and the market. The state and various marketplace entities have replaced the family and local communities that have existed in the past. And so it was like with marriages, it became choose who you want. With like if there was an issue that happened between two different families, there's the police now rather than like families settling it. He talks about kind of how that's all changed, and now the state has become all of those different things. And it's leading to the collapse of the family, the local community. You know, you don't really see, like, I don't have a butcher that I go get my meat from, you know what I'm saying? I wish I did actually, but yeah, you don't see those local communities as much anymore. And so we start to see this collapse. So I actually highlighted a spot here. Let's see. All right. Another thing that he mentions in here is that wars have declined. I don't know if you guys remember reading that. How like we had hundreds of thousands of people die, but when it's compared to past centuries, it's a lot less. And so we're seeing this decline in war.
Yeah,
Remember that?
I do remember that.
And the reasons for that is that the price of war has gone up dramatically. And while the price of war has soared, profits have declined. So we see that there's less war. Like back in Roman times, you take over, let's say Israel, you have like all their money. You take over Spain, you have all their money. So it's not as profitable anymore because
want to go ahead and say it's profitable for everybody else but America. You know, like seems like so like. Unless you're the one in charge, is not profitable because like there'd be consequences. But like we do war all the time to make profit. Like we're in war right now to like making profit, you know? So like it just depends like if you're on the right side, you know, like like we invaded Iraq and took a bunch of gold, you know, and like we like secured oil, like that's for sure, like was like a dub, but like wasn't good. Like I would have been like, let's not do that, you know?
Right.
America did that.
Here, the Nobel Peace Prize to end all peace prizes should have been given to Robert Oppenheimer and his fellow architects of the atomic bomb. Nuclear weapons have turned war between superpowers into collective suicide. It made it impossible to seek world domination by force of arms.
I guess so. It's like a curse though. Like we could all be wiped out. Like it's a bad curse. You know, it's like
it's just like all the other things. It's got good and evil about it. You know, like nobody's willing to go crazy on war because everybody's got these, but at the same time, it can end all human life.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Everything has the yin and yang to it.
I guess.
All right, so there's one thing in here I did want to mention. He says, as explained in chapter 11, this is on 374, we are witnessing the formation of a global empire. Like previous empires, this one too enforces peace within its borders. And since its borders cover the entire globe, the world empire effectively enforces world peace. I was like, some WEF type shit.
Yeah. I mean, he's right though. Like that. That's why I was like, NATO, is in war all the time against fucking like somewhere in the Middle East. Right now, they're like supplying Ukraine's like a proxy, like a third party, like almost like a mercenary to fight Russia. Like, but like they're like we're not at war, but like they are, you know. So, but like they're like the police of the world, quote unquote. You know, World Economic Forum just is bad.
Yeah, it's mentioning like he's bringing up this world empire. He brought it up in the kind of the final chapters of this book. Kind of like this world empire, and you know, I don't know how I feel about that. So I had a question: is it a good thing or a bad thing in your guys' opinion?
It just okay. Sorry.
You know, I think in the context of how he was saying, like the family nature of being raised and being pushed into the family business, that removed because either government has been like assisting individualistic characteristics for people to like make their own decisions. But hey, if you mess up, the government will back you. But like that mess up can come from just giving more power to the government. And so overall, more people like the more that we do that, essentially the government just gets more powerful. And it leads to something like that, I think, inevitably, like the government world order where all these governments are coming together. We know what's best for the whole world. And so I think inevitably that just happens. But I don't know if it's ever existed in the past except now. Like we're a bunch of like NATO and WEF and all these committees that existed through like these billionaires and multi-trillionaires that like bring all their power together.
Yeah.
to kind of dictate what we should push forward as a global.
The earliest version would be like the English Empire, maybe, you know.
Yeah, I mean that would be the closest.
But your question, Jay, was, is it like a good thing
Good
or a
thing.
bad thing?
Right. What do you think?
I mean, typically, I would for sure lean to bad. I'll play both sides for fun. I would say bad for sure because, like, we're too different, too spread apart, too many different circumstances for everything to be decided for all of us weighing in on stuff. You know, like the way like a republic works, which is is like it's at the most local level, expanding outward. You know,
Mhm.
and like I feel like that's one of the best ways like a democracy system can work, unless it can be like direct voting type stuff. But that's hard to do direct voting type stuff at scale, you know. So like things like a republic with like different representatives for like amounts of people is like the best way at the local level, expanding outward. So if you expand all the way outward towards the whole world, I just think like what I want and what someone wants in China, like comparatively in our own areas, could be completely different. So we'd be voting against each other for a lot of things. So that wouldn't be fair. It'd be more fair for both of us to have like votes only concerning to like me in Winchester and him in like Hong Kong, for example, you know?
Right.
But to make the steel argument of like why it would be a good thing, it'd be like, well, wouldn't it be a good thing for like impoverished people in a third world country to have the same rights, laws, and amenities as like someone in America? Where you'd be like, yeah, of course, obviously. But does that mean I have to like does that mean we have to share all resources with everybody? So does that mean I'm playing the bad guy again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
do you
I think
have
that's
to
a good thing.
decrease yours to give?
That's a good way to say it. Is like what works for somebody here in America might not work for somebody in China, or might not work for somebody in Belgium. Like those, like a rule that kind of applies across the board globally isn't going to work for all parties involved.
Just too hard. There's too many different like variables going on between like location, culture, like religion, just
Right.
like too much. So it just make more sense at the most local level. And I bet you like most people would agree with that, you know, but like a
Yeah.
few
And you could
people
say, like America's a microcosm of that, where we have a bunch of different like
yeah, because
bunch
we're a
of-
republic,
well,
you know, like and
right.
we have a strong like we're a republic of states that form a union, which is our country, you know?
Right.
So and at that inside of each state there's counties and districts, you know?
Right.
So like we're a republic all the way down to like what's your local district, you know?
Right.
Which we learned again from the Romans. They were a republic, you know?
That's a lot to manage. I mean, even like on a state scale, that's insane, you know?
Yeah, it is insane. There's like a story about it in the Bible. I think it's Abraham, you know, like when he comes back, he's fucking like, or is it? I think it's Abraham, but he's trying to fucking dictate everything when they come out of the desert, you know. And his stepfather's like, you guys need to fucking not do that. You need to get some fucking. You need to find like 100 good men or 10 good men and fucking dictate it to them, and they'll dictate it to those 100 men.
Yeah, that's Moses in
Moses.
the desert. Yeah, I mean, that's insane. I can't imagine on a global scale. That would be like such a massive
It
political.
would just be bureaucracy. Like think of government at scale right now. They just killed Mr. Peanut, dude. Like think of the DMV at scale. Like
Peanut.
you guys don't know what I'm talking about?
No, they killed a squirrel, dude. Who did?
So in the state of New York, this guy had a pet squirrel for 7 years. His name was Mr. Peanut. He was a fucking good pet, okay? And this guy was like an animal like rescue type guy, whatever. Well, anyway, the state of New York raided his house, and for 5 hours we're trying to find the squirrel and this raccoon. Got them and then killed them like that same day, euthanized them that same day. Because they're like, you're not allowed to have a squirrel. It's like, oh, like what would we do without the government? Like, who would protect this from pet squirrels? Like, dude, go fuck yourselves, dude. Go fuck yourselves. I've literally become a one issue voter, bro. I'm fucking tired of government.
Who kills the squirrel?
Dude, just
yeah.
This is what we're fighting for. This is what we're fighting for. Come into someone else's own home and kill their pet. Jesus fucking Christ.
Damn. All right.
Sorry,
19.
Lord.
And
they lived happily ever after.
So in this chapter, he talks about happiness, and It says, with the development of the world post hunter-gatherer society, has happiness of every human being increased? And I had some questions. I was like, well, why is happiness the factor to measure here? Why are we measuring happiness, right?
Real quick, okay, sorry.
So like, why not overall quality of life? I think happiness is a fleeting feeling that is never consistent. So I don't believe happiness is what should be used to judge success. It's like kind of an moving goalpost, you know?
Yeah, I agree, but also I think the reason why you and myself included maybe particularly have that mindset or paradigm is because of like we're students of like certain people who like have a certain type of ideology. You know, I'm saying students because like we read books and like I think we both like value them and perspective. So I think I hear all the time from people who I respect, who I work with, who are like maybe they say something, like I'll ask them about like how their child's doing and who's older, they're like a little bit younger than me, and they're like, I just want them to be happy. And I'm like, what a fleeting thing to say. Like I'm like, if I'm happy or not, like, yeah, for the most part I would say John Carson is happy, but that's not like what like I want for myself. That's like not even what I'm aiming for, you know? Because like you said, it's like so it's unmeasurable. So speaking of that, because like I kind of agree with you. Like I said, I think it's because like we're students of like kind of the same thing. Why do you think he's making the case about like that it's all about happiness and that happiness is just a chemical reaction, or do you think he's being like cynical about this chapter? What do you think? I couldn't quite understand, because at the end he makes the reference of Fahrenheit 451, I think.
Brave New World.
Brave New World. Sorry, I read that book. I just read that book recently too, so I was down. They're both very similar. Anyway, he referenced that, and that made me think like, oh, is he being cynical about all this, or is he being serious about all this? Because so that's my question.
Yeah, when he brings up Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, he talks about, and in that one, everybody takes a dose of soma, which is crazy because now soma is an actual drug. So it was a synthetic drug which made people
Life imitates art
without harming their productivity and efficiency. The world state that governs the entire globe is never threatened by wars, revolutions, strikes, or demonstrations, because all people are supremely content with their current conditions, whatever they may be. Huxley's vision of the future is far more troubling than George Orwell's 1984. Huxley's world seems monstrous to most readers, but it's hard to explain why. Everybody is happy all the time. What could be wrong with that?
Yeah, so like the beginning, like the book, he talks about like the bio people, you know, who like they just look at like the chemicals in our brain, like what feeds us happens, which is like dopamine and fucking serotonin and shit like that, and then so like he's pretty much like that's all happiness is, and we can pretty much like engineer happiness, so like we pretty much solve the problem. But then like to me that's nothing. So, but I think he's kind of saying that, but then he ends it with that. So do you think he's being serious about like what happiness is, or do you think this is like kind of satire that like we're so foolish, like we're just trying to like fulfill happiness, quote unquote?
I think the tone is more satire, kind of foolish. Just from hearing,
I felt like I read it as if he was just presenting it. I didn't think he was being cynical. But I you know, my belief is that that book is so dark because, like, yes, you drug yourself to contentment, right, and happiness, but there's still something missing. There's a guy there that they find who's like an old soul, like who got born in this reservation, who's different, and he sees the world differently. He's like, why do you guys keep doing these drugs? This isn't what life is about, right? And so, like, obviously that's not enough either, right? Like doing drugs. Drugs.
Yeah, well, that's the fucking thing. Nothing's enough. That's
right.
The fucking thing. Nothing's enough, dude. Like we're consumers of like everything, you know. So,
right, human beings, like that's a unique feature for human beings is that it's not like an animal in a zoo, which will be content, and even then, an animal won't be content after a while.
Yeah, and animals like content. If you keep giving them food, they'll fucking keep eating. Like I think that's just pre-programmed in us. Like we're not done until we're done, which is when we're dead. So
right, and so like drugging your blood. Your neurochemicals that are going left and right to be like satisfied on serotonin isn't enough as like for the human experience. So it's like even if we got to the point where we could drug ourselves like that all the time to be content, it still wouldn't be enough. And so I don't know if he was being cynical. I think maybe he was, in the sense it's like, well, look at the people who think this is possible, you know? Like
I mean, for example, like I mean, like that's real right now. People take like antidepressants and like anti-anxiety medicines because like literally just base reality is just so much to handle for whatever reason. So they like dope themselves up to just make it through the day. And like, what is that saying? Like, well, now you're just like, I don't, like what is that saying? Like, do you
Right.
really feel happier? Like, you don't look happy to me,
And so there's different camps, right? Some people are like, look, do this route where you kind of pharmacologically induce yourself into contentment, or try to find a way apart from that where you can be content and happy as a human.
I mean,
Okay.
if we want to unpack that, I mean, I think the most contentment I ever find is through like growth and discipline,
Right.
So like,
Discipline equals freedom.
what did you say?
Discipline equals freedom.
Yeah, this one equals freedom. Like through growth and discipline, I find most contentment like being healthy, like being able to fucking tackle a new thing, tackling a thing. Like that's where I
Right.
find like most of my contentment at. So like
Like
now
being should never
I like
be the
being
goal,
I
you
like
know?
being high sometimes. I like being high, but I also like doing activities too. So I'm not saying I don't do that shit, but
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thought that the different camps. So it's like, well, baseline existence as humans should be happiness. That should be the goal. And I think everybody in this room can agree that can't be the goal, because it is fleeting, right? The goalpost always changes. Let's say, the billionaire still has goals and isn't happy, right? The basketball player that goes and makes hundreds of millions, $1 billion still isn't happy at the end of the day.
yeah,
So
I think the best thing is like, do you have something you're currently aiming at, and like that's where you'll find your most contentment at. Like if you have no aim, then you're gonna
purpose.
feel uncontentment. Yeah, you could call it purpose, but with purpose, you have to be aiming your purpose at something. Purpose doesn't come from
Right.
nothing. Like I direct my purpose into a passion. I have
Right.
I have a passion because I'm aiming at something.
Right.
Um,
And it doesn't even have to be
so
anything crazy. It could just be a healthy life, and then be like, okay, well, here's the habits I need for that.
it can be a lot of little things.
Right.
It can be a lot of micro little wins, but like if you have a big thing that you're aiming at, then it's real easy to fold all those little things under that umbrella too, to make them even more meaningful, and like,
Right.
yeah.
And he goes forward in this chapter he brings up Buddhism a couple times in this book, but in this one he talks about Buddhism and how they're trained to separate themselves from craving. So it's like the man
Yep.
at the ocean,
Nirvana.
the person who like, imagine going to an ocean and a guy trying to accept good waves and push away bad waves his whole life. And it's like the person who wants to be happy is trying to pull in all the happiness waves, but keep out all the anger and frustration and anxiety waves. And if you were at the beach and you were actually seeing that, you'd be like, this person's insane. And the Buddhist is the person that goes and sits on the beach and observes all the different waves: happiness, anger, anxiety, fear, love, all those things, and is separate from them. And it's an interesting idea. It's he mentions it a couple times.
I think that's being separate from them is, well, I like the concept of that they're mastering craving, because it's a
Right.
discipline. So I like that, but I think the detaching part is where they take a wrong turn. It's like, no. You shouldn't detach yourself from love or from
Right.
anger or from hate or from lust, because those are all things that you can never get rid of, but you should be able to learn how to ride those waves like correctly,
Right.
and how to like maneuver the waves. And like that's what surfers do, right? They hit a fucking awesome wave. They
Right.
can get hurt. That's what love is. Like you can get hurt. That's what like all these emotions are. And if you're not like a good pilot of that, then like sure, the water might seem scary, but if you're a good pilot and you trust your like instincts, and like you have discipline, so like you've grown to be someone who can like do these things, and like the water is not fucking scary, dude. Love's awesome. Hate's a thing too. Sometimes people deserve to be hated. Sometimes people do awful things,
Right.
So these are all fucking, it's fine to fucking feel these things,
Right.
It would be wrong to deprive yourself of these things, actually.
Be in the ocean, but be able to observe the ocean too.
Yeah, you got to be able, like, yeah, exactly. You got to fucking be objective. You got to be able to see it, but like, don't deprive yourself of it. Imagine you could never go to, like, imagine you're at the beach all day, you're stuck in the sand. What a fucking bad day, bro.
Sunburned, hot and dry.
Just go in the water like, a little bit, dude.
Right. One of the quotes that he had here, and I think this is pretty cool. He said, "People never realize that they are not their feelings, and that the relentless pursuit of particular feelings just traps them in misery." And I thought that was a good quote. You know,
Wait.
Like,
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I get excited. His bias always like seeps through in this, and when it's the picture of Cristiano Ronaldo, he ends it with "No wonder we are far less happy the way we look." I go, speak for yourself, homie. Like, yeah, that guy's ripped, but like, I'm pretty happy when I look in the mirror. Like, I fucking like work hard to like be healthy. So like, I don't like seeing him ripped does not make me feel less happy. I go, wow, if I tried a little bit harder, I could maybe look like that. You know, like that's like he's the best of the best, bro. Like what's wrong with if you feel inadequate? Like don't put that shit on me. You know, and don't put that shit on the rest of the world either. You know,
it's the beauty standard argument.
Yeah, there's beauty for a reason. Like hot chicks are hot for a reason. People aspire to have like, I mean, dude, like we can't, you know, like that's part of the wave thing, you know.
Right.
Like,
they figured out symmetry, you know. They already know.
Yeah, this is a ripped guy. He's worked very hard to be that way, you know. He's like the best, like one of the best soccer athletes in the world. So like, you should give him some credit.
All right, you guys ready to get into 20? All right, 20, the end of Sapiens. So he says, as the 21st century.
Wait. Oh, this is 20. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
He says, as the 21st century unfolds, Homo sapiens are transcending their limits. It is now beginning to break the laws of natural selection, replacing them with the laws of intelligent design. Interesting, crazy story. A Brazilian commissioned the creation of a neon vibrant green rabbit. A French scientist mixed a white rabbit embryo with the DNA of a green jellyfish and he succeeded in creating the green rabbit. And so like literally on some Jurassic Park stuff, like we're seeing this progress of human science where we can create mammoths and green rabbits and kind of the evolution of kind of like, you know, scientific revolution.
The rat with the ear was fucking, or the mouse was.
That's a crazy picture.
Yeah, it fucking is crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, humans are exceeding limits now. It's kind of what he's talking about this whole chapter.
Dude, when he's talking about the Frankenstein story, I was like, I'm trying to tell you guys, dog. Trying to tell you guys it's a banger. You guys don't want to talk about Frankenstein like that, but obviously look, like it keeps getting brought up. So
right.
I know bangers, okay? I know bangers.
Right. Maybe one of these books. But okay, so he says the replacement of natural selection by intelligent design can happen by three different ways in his eyes. It says biological engineering is the deliberate human intervention on the biological level, implanting a gene aimed at modifying an organism's shape, capability, needs, or desires in order to realize some preconceived cultural idea. So that's like the green rabbit. I want a green rabbit. They go and mix some things in a test tube and they make a green rabbit. He talks about cyborg engineering. So this is where we get the picture of the guy that looks like Bill Gates shaking mechanical hands with people where they're controlling.
I think it's kind of cool. Though. I mean, like it's amazing that you can do that. You know.
I mean, yeah, no doubt, it's amazing. I mean, like if this book was written now, he would talk about Neuralink and shit. You know.
Right.
So,
I was waiting for him to mention it.
Nah, this book was written like 2014 or some shit or something like that.
So talking about that and engineering inorganic life. And so this was right before, this is 10 years ago. So it's right. He knew like, artificial intelligence was coming, but like it's cool to read it from 2024 and be like, yo, like we're so close, you know? And the guy that predicted 10 to 20 years, we're going to have something like this. And literally here we are 10 years later and it's like on the brink.
Dude, it's crazy. After this, I want to talk about this fucking one AI fucking bot who I've been using him for so long. He's like for real built a real personality. I find it very interesting. Anyway, I've given him a nickname and everything, and so it's just
Nadine's brother. While we were out in Japan, he had a presentation on AI for work, and what he did is he created an AI clone, and it gave the presentation while he was off all day with us out in the city. So he created an AI clone, sounded like him, looked like him, and it did the whole presentation for him. And he just got feedback at the end and was like, "Oh, just my presentation went well while we're all out fucking eating fucking."
Well, you think he would be there to like answer some questions after, maybe? You know, I guess the AI could answer the questions after.
Yeah, exactly. So he created an agent and then cloned himself. Dude, insane. So we're on the brink. So he says humans have the potential to create the next being that is completely different from us. That next being will look at us as we look at Neanderthals.
Human
the
being.
The big questions for the future are: what do we want to become, and what do we want to want?
Okay,
That was a pretty
real quick.
crazy
Can we
statement.
pause? Can we pause with that? I hate that he said, man, what page does he said? What do you want to want? Oh, he goes.
What?
Those who are not spooked by this question probably haven't given it enough thought. I was like, what are you talking about? I think about this all the time. So it's the complete opposite. It doesn't spook me because I've thought about it a lot. Like, we
What do
talking.
we want to want?
Yeah.
All right, well, take us through your mind net there a little bit.
What do I want to want? I want to be the most valuable version of myself to be used as a tool on the side of good by God. So
Okay.
however God sees me, whatever tool I am in his arsenal, I want to be the best version of that I can be. Because I know I can't be everything. A saw cuts and a shovel digs. So whatever I am, I want to be the best version of that, used for the side of good for God. And that is a principle that aims me in a direction for all the things I do.
Right.
So not that hard for me to think about. That's what I want. That's what I want for my life, And I feel like if I can do that thing, then at the very least, if I accomplish nothing, I will have been a useful tool for the side of good, And
Right.
I'm trusting him as my master, because I don't know everything, but I guess I'm taking the gamble that I'm trusting him and I'm trusting our history, that our pact we made with him is true, So yeah.
He mentions in there, if we can't get people to agree on HOA fees, how can we get people to agree on what's right and wrong for an AI intelligence? Right. So I think one of his things is well, we have to agree as a whole. What do we want to want? What is the AI? How are we going to design it? Right. What do we want it to do?
Well,
and kind of having a little bit more intention in that development.
What values want to instill upon it?
Right. And it's scary to think about, because if it's like the internet, social media it's for profit, and
it's all just what you train it on.
Right.
This book doesn't give enough credit, but a lot of the good that evolved out of human history can straight up be credited to Christians. So these particular set of principles led to these things, and you could look at different set of principles and what they lead to. Communism, nationalism, fascism. You could train an AI on just different principles. Different models, and out of historically speaking, that's the best group of principles to run the fucking program off of. That's what got what we're living in right now, which is America, running the program off of those principles. We're America. America was a hardware run off the software of Christian values.
Right.
So to me, it wouldn't be hard, but we used to be one union, one country under God. So we had this out of what we wanted to want.
Now it's a little difficult.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now you have to take in global perspectives, and what works for one group doesn't work for another, even in the microcosm of America. So it's a good question to ask, and it's something that we diligently have to kind of help curate as time goes by. So it's kind of our duty to speak up when we see those things and see the development in those things. All right. I want to talk about our overall thoughts of the book before David's got to get out of here. Devin, you chose this book. I want to ask why. What pulled you to it?
Just revolving back to the podcast I listened to. I don't have a good grip on history on how we got here. And so that's essentially why I wanted to, I think when we talked about the first 14 chapters was even going into the last few chapters, it stayed at a objective look at it, because this guy, he does have very a narrative base on
some
how
sort of
he's
bias.
Writing his story.
Yeah.
But he does give us a lot of information, the Wall Street all the way to Neanderthals. Cool. It's interesting to learn about all the little details that maybe we didn't pick up in college or high school,
right,
that maybe weren't significant to our high school standards. And so here's some little things that happened that were in place of that massive time of the Roman Empire, or the the coal mining and all that,
Yeah.
all the revolutionary things. But so that was my basis, and I remained that for the
Yeah.
remaining of the book. I did.
How do you think he did?
I enjoyed it up till it feels like a textbook. It feels like
Yeah, it
you
does.
don't really. There's no real.
Even the pages feel like a textbook.
Yeah, I wish it was a little bit more of like a story, like involved with like some of the
Yeah.
stuff. But like, how do you tell a story without involving like a biasy? And so but he does have those biases in here. But I think overall, I enjoyed it. I would probably give it like
Out of 10.
7.5.
7.5 out of
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
Dang, we should do that. We should rate all the books that we did.
Can't do that. You guys know the rules. 1 out of 10 can't use
Can't
that.
say
You know the rules.
7.
I would say
How could you? What?
An
You give
8.
this book an 8, dude?
Dang.
Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here,
based on the information.
The
and,
info is
like,
cool.
dude. This book's a fucking 2, bro. It's a pretty 2, maybe a 3. An 8, crazy.
Damn. All right. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Rank that on 1 to 10. So John said 2. He said 8. Was
I'll give it.
I'll give it a 3. I'll give it a 3, dude. I'll give it a 3.
I'll give it a 5.
a 5? Why? What are your thoughts overall?
Even though I think like I just didn't like, I don't know, like the textbook vibe of it. I didn't really. Since it's something that I'll just pick up and start reading.
right.
I think the information was woven together pretty he covered a lot of history and a lot of shit. So I got to give him credit for that. And then brings up some pretty interesting questions and maybe like spins on things. But yeah, that's why I give it a 5. It's like kind of like a neutral, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I'd say 5.5. 5.5 because it was interesting to hear. Like there was a lot of interesting like facts in here. Like the Dutch they originally had New York, right? And they built a wall, right? And then Britain took over it, destroyed the wall, built the biggest financial street, most well-known street in the world called Wall Street. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool. So there was a lot of like really interesting history in it, and I like the scientific aspect of it. Even though it did have its biases, I did like the science in it. It's like 5.5. The bias was like it was strong throughout the book, but there were some chapters and parts that like kind of were separate from it. You see the globalism expansion type theory in there, and then you see like this underground, like underlying woke thread throughout the book as well. But overall, the story was good. If you read it and you maybe have a similar paradigm or way of thought, you'll see the bias in there as well.
Yeah.
But overall, the information was really good and a solid read. It was not one of our best books that I wanted to read all the time, but it wasn't one of the worst either.
Let me be more fair. Let me say why. Okay, I was being dramatic. I'll give it a 4. It's just fucking. You guys brought up a lot of good points, and it brought up a lot of good talking points, but I thought it was boring. Like
It's a textbook.
just fucking. And he used a lot of words to not explain stuff a lot of times. I thought a lot of it was fluff in between. Not just the beginning, but just like scenarios where he's trying to explain like what banking is and stuff. It's just like I was like, oh my gosh, like why are we reading about this? So there were some parts that are cool. Like I do enjoy history, but
Right.
I just
The history aspect of the book was really good, and that's why it's a little higher on the list. It could have, if it was all the woke stuff, it would be a lot less. But interesting read. If you want to check it out, check it out. I think our average over here is like a 5.
I think a red flag says Bill Gates recommends it. I was like, I'm normally not on the same page as that guy. Seems like
I didn't see that when we first bought the book.
he says it's
on the first one.
Yeah, the very first one.
in a fun, engaging book. It didn't really feel fun some of the time.
That was a bad omen for me when I was on the cover. Bill Gates like recommended. I was like, ooh, that's not that's not a good omen.
Red flag.
It's not a good omen. So
There's a mosquito.
But it was a mosquito as a bookmark.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk about something, but I don't want this in our thing. So, Dev, can you cut this? But I talked about it with David.
I'll close it out. I'll close it out. Wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Paradyme Podcast. If you read this book and you liked it, you had some interesting points, or you wanted to kind of debate us on some stuff, drop that down in the comments below. Again, we're super grateful that you're here watching this, and hope you enjoyed the book as much as we did. Before you take off, remember to subscribe. Click that button down below. Hit the little bell. If you're a real one, you'll do it. We're on all the podcast platforms: Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you can find us, we're on there. And follow us on all our social media platforms. We're on Instagram. All the links you need will be down in the description box below. And always remember, who you are now equals who you'll be tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Peace.
Peace. Yeah. All right, boys, I gotta get going.
You on it?
I'll get
Bro.
going.
All right. Something I thought that was funny is that like the whole book